Hello everyone, so this is a new game that I've created for the mini Ludum Dare 69. The theme was colonization. So when I thought about colonization, I thought about a game that I used to play in the mid-90s on BBS system, bulletin board systems, where you dial up with your 14.4K modem, your 28.8K modem. You dial into a BBS over your phone line, tie up a phone line, and play BBS games with fancy graphics. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed playing was Trade Wars 2002. So this is my remake of a Trade Wars style game, but in 3D, developed in Unity. Unfortunately, there's no online features or anything as a single player game. So here's the title screen. You can see I did a 3D rendering of the text, the Manifest Universe. I came up with the title. I was kind of thinking like Manifest Destiny, which was in American history where the people on the East Coast went west and settled out on the west, explored the west, and that's kind of like the same theme here, except you're exploring space and you're colonizing space. So you can see the title text there. I developed that in Blender, and it just sweeps around like that. If you press a button, then it starts to load, and here you see a sector. So the whole entire universe is composed of many different sectors, and these sectors are linked to each other, so you can warp to different sectors in the universe. And each sector has a port and one or more planets. I went ahead and just populated the universe in these sectors with a bunch of planets and ports. Now, in the original Trade Wars, there were ports occasionally in sectors, and most of the planets you had to create yourself using Genesis torpedoes. So yeah, you can go and you can land on these planets. When you click on one, you get a closer view. And so I have 3 different resource types. I named mine a little bit differently, so this game is a little bit different. But you have elements, biotics, and machinery. And by default, I went ahead and populated some colonists on the planets, but you can press the minus button right there, and you can start loading colonists onto your ship. So you can see up here on the upper right hand corner, you got on board, you got your number of colonists, you're in the 3 resources, elements, biotics, and machinery. And that's the number that's on board your ship. Now, you can't buy ships in this game. You just got one standard ship, and it's got unlimited holds. That's something I'll need to add, is different ships with different hold values. So you see in the second column is the number of colonists to build this type of resource. So the lower the number, the more resources it will generate based on the number of colonists that are on the planet. And I believe it ticks every 30 seconds. So as they build resources, you gain more resources, and you can load those onto your ship. Then, after you've loaded those up on your ship, you can blast off, you can dock at the port, and you can sell some of your resources for credits. And for each port, they either buy or sell these resources, so each port is different. And you can see I did this little 3D spaceship type dock, star dock type thing in Blender. I also added a point light, so I did something kind of neat in this game. So since there's 8 different types of ports, it's basically 2, each one will either be buy or sell. So you got 3 different resources, so 2 to the third is 8. So there's 8 different possibilities of different types of ports right here. So what I did, which I think is kind of neat, and work to a different sector, you can see this port's a little bit greenish. So I basically took a binary representation of these 3 different values. So each one's either a 1 or a 0. Then I converted that binary representation into an integer. So for each different type of port, I get a unique value 1 through 8. And using that value, by dividing by 8, I can set a value between 0, float 0, and 1 float. And I use that as my hue for this lighting effect. on the different ports. So that gives you a wide variety of different lighting effects on these different ports, which I think is kind of cool. An easy way to make your game object a little bit more colorful just programmatically and without actually having to like write a big long case statement for every different type of port. But yeah, you can land on all these different planets. You can put colonists on a planet if you want to build more of that type of resource. Just press the plus button, that will unload that or the resources onto the planet. I believe there's 8 different types of planets in the game. You have a glacial type, and each type of planet has a different value for how many to build one. So here's like a mountainous type, so it takes relatively few number of colonists to build one of these resources. Here's an oceanic type, so it takes a lot of colonists to build machinery. So trying to keep in the spirit of trade wars, but not directly copying their values or what they did with trade wars. So here's a rocky type, and a lot of these I got from NASA. NASA has a lot of good image resources out there that are like free or Creative Commons royalty free to use in your games. So I basically took some of these planet maps from NASA right there. So you can see with these different warps at the bottom, I can visit different parts of the universe. And here's a volcanic type planet. So it doesn't generate very many biotics, but it generates lots of elements. One change I need to make is to make it where I can like load in multiple of these resources without having to continually click on the up or down arrow, or at least make it where I can press it down once and then it manually just add or subtract from that value without having to click it every time. But unfortunately, it's a little bit tricky with Unity. I actually used the UI interface for this time, and it basically by default comes with an on-click event. That's all you get. You can expand that, but it still doesn't really give you a good way to continually subtract a value from a variable. Here's another planet that I made. So basically I took a texture map of the Earth, and this is a grasslands type. So I just selected all the blue on the Earth and just replaced it with some green noise, and then I think I used like a smear or a wind blur effect to make it look kind of grassy on the planet to give it more of a grassy look. So here's one that's all buy. So like I was saying earlier, buy is a 0 and sell is a 1. So 0, 0, 0 is 0. So on the hue scale, it goes from red, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So 0 is like right at red. So that's why this one appears red. Now if you have one that's sell, 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 then that will be violet. If you have one that's in the middle, then that will be green. Yeah, so that's basically it for Manifest Universe. I wanted to do something relatively simple. As you can see, there's not a lot of different sectors, and I would like to have it where it would generate a whole universe from sectors 1 all the way up to 5,000, kind of like in the old Trade Wars game. But just getting that tree created is a little bit difficult, so I just created like I think 10 different sectors and assigned them random integer values for the sector's number. So you're really not too much exploring in this game. I would like to have it where you could actually like take over these planets and claim ownership and have I have it stubbed out where you can add actually AI characters in the game. So adding the AI won't be too difficult to add to this game. Also, one other thing, I generated random names for every one of the planets. Basically, I took, I believe, a Greek god. I just got a list of Greek gods, and then I appended like a Greek alphabet letter. So it just gives it kind of a spacey sci-fi type name for all of these planets. Basically hold those in 2 string arrays. So I just grab a random one out of the first God array, then I grab another second one out of the Greek alphabet array, then append those 2 together, concatenate those 2 strings together to get the planet name. So this was another planet. I think they actually got a texture map from Neptune and Mercury, and then using GIMP I was able to like superimpose those 2 together, because the Neptune texture map really wasn't interesting. It just looks like a big blue ball, so this kind of gives it more of a rocky type texture, but still retaining that blue color for the sphere. Again, I used GarageBand to make the music for this game. I did one tune for the main theme of the game as you're playing the game. Then I did another, basically trimmed it out a little bit and slowed it down for the title screen music. Yeah, so that's basically it for Manifest Universe. There's a lot of additional things that could be added to this game. I would like to make it a multiplayer online game where the state of the universe persists. I designed the game in a way that I think that it wouldn't be too hard to implement, because all of the core game data is in very simple classes. It's not in game objects or anything. It's basically in classes with regular data types like strings and ints and things like that. So that could be easily turned into a server program. And then based on the status of the universe, Unity, in my code, I populate all of the game objects based on that data model. So I kind of keep those decoupled as much as possible, keeping in mind that this could be turned into an online multiplayer game. I'd also like to have a way where people could log in and create a character, maybe using OAuth, be able to use their Twitter account or something to authenticate and be able to use those credentials, or maybe their Google account or Facebook or whatever. So you don't have to, so I don't have to actually manage different gathering passwords and usernames and emails for all the players. That would make things much simpler. So anyway, thanks for checking out Manifest Universe. It's currently on itch.io. I plan to also upload it to GameJolt. So thanks everyone for watching.